Okay, Darren, before we get into some sports betting and sports business items I can't wait to pick your brain on, I want to clear something up because I was at ESPN for 5 years as a sideline reporter for college football and basketball. And I was under the assumption that I was some prodigy. I was told I was ESPN's youngest on air hire for a full season at 22 years old. I had just turned 22. But then I heard you on a podcast say that you were the second youngest on air hire behind Max Kellerman. I tell you what, that totally burst my bubble. But what is the story there? And can I still carefully craft the wording so I can tell my kids that one day?
So it was 7 days after my 22nd birthday. What do you got?
Oh, okay.
What do
Well,
you got?
that's pretty good. This was May, and I turned 22 in April.
Okay, so I think I probably
You
have
beat
you
me.
by a sliver. Um, yeah, no, just just a wacko story
Yeah.
of me reading, and I always say young people don't get this, but me reading the green pages of USA Today as much as the red pages. So the business section, the B section before the C section sports, and just falling in love with the idea of being a business reporter who covers sports and not believing that there really wasn't one at the national level.
Right.
And just luckily, ESPN came to Northwestern, and it wasn't an HR person. If it was, I might have made it to ESPN at some point, but not right
Right.
away. And I said, you guys are the worldwide leader in sports. Why don't you be the worldwide leader in sports business? And it was a little bit foreign, but I think they got the idea. And I was in Bristol like 3 weeks later, and it
Man.
was
What's Max Kellerman's story then?
Kellerman was on a local access TV station in New York at 18.
Okay.
And he was, yeah, so we kind of have that kinship in common of like, like being on the national stage
Yeah.
so young. And I set up all these rules that I'm thankful for now, um for my career. Like
Mhm.
one of them was like, I'm never dating anyone from ESPN, not going on a single date.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it just, and as inconvenient as that was in Bristol, I mean, you were more on the road. If I would have done that, it just would have complicated so many things. So there's a lot of rules that I made, like not drinking in public, like again,
Yeah.
because I had this job, I couldn't believe I was there. It was my dream, and I was going to do nothing to destroy it.
But that also has to do with considering yourself a brand, which you did before people even used that term, like my brand, I'm branding myself. What's the secret sauce to branding yourself in any industry?
That's a really good question. Uh, First of all, you need to be unique in a way
Mm.
that people think about you. So one of the things I did, and this was later on with Twitter, was I knew I couldn't get all the sports business, but I knew that if I could be a conduit, a go-between,
Yeah.
where you know what I do, and you saw something that I would have done if I would have seen it. And now I'm going
Mm.
to give you credit for seeing it, but it's going to be on my timeline, and kind of doing it that way. And I think like when people say like, this is what Darren Rovell would have said, it's just heavily defining what you are, and what you would say in certain situations. And it begins with pounding and pounding and pounding the same thing. So
Right.
that like Tiger Woods, after he has a putt, Ravel's going to give me the, what he made and what his career money is. And I think just through repetition, that's really how you build a brand and identity.
I haven't heard it described that way, but that makes so much sense too, because you found such a niche and you did it first with sports business, but you also do it in, your theater background. You
Yeah.
wanted to make a push at Broadway. Like you have this curiosity that extends far beyond sports.
And
I'm,
that's,
I'm
and Olivia, that's why it's so important I always think about for liberal arts education,
Yep.
for being curious, just
Mhm.
being curious. I have a brain that just works at a speed that is both good and very bad. Right. So like when I have 3 kids, when
Yeah.
I have to slow down and just play hockey or just play in the pool, That is the hardest that, I have to literally, or on vacation, to not read a book or look at a phone, to
Oh my
sit
gosh.
there is torturous. But that's also made me why I'm good at what I do, and I multitask.
Yeah.
I work for the Action Network. I am dealing with a memorabilia collection that I'm building every day. I'm a
Yeah.
partner in a venture capital firm that invests in food and beverage. Like, but that's, it's accepting that, the good and the bad, and learning how to train it throughout life. But it doesn't help when you're on Twitter the way I am, for good and bad, to figure out how to disconnect.
Do you have minions who help you with your social media?
I have fired every single tweet, all 280,000 or something like
Get
that.
out.
I have. I will not let anyone touch it. I do have a guy who, we have a three-way system.
Mm-hmm.
It is designed so that I could relax for 30 seconds. So if he spends time on Twitter all day,
Yeah.
and his only job is to fire missives to me in three ways. If something is interesting and not that important, but he wants me to see it and it fits my brand and what I would do, he emails it to me. If it is semi-urgent, could possibly be something I need to get on, that is a text.
Okay.
And then whenever I see him call, if no matter where I am, and that's maybe one time a day, I'm picking up that phone. So the thing is that I need to tell the betting story or the business story to the original story. And the faster I can get that original story, the faster I can then get out that secondary story.
Right. It's twofold.
And it used to be I started in 2000. It used to be, there was a page called Rich Johnson's Sports Pages. There was all these links of every sports section.
Yeah.
And I'd wake up at 6 a.m. and read every damn sports section and see, like, what is the story that is the magic today? And then it was blog lines, because all these blogs came out. So when people say, like, how, I think I was probably in between the first and 10th journalist on Twitter, and people are like, how did you recognize that was the platform? And I was like, I didn't. I was swimming in a sea of trying to figure out how to get things, right. And I realized that if I followed the right people on Twitter, I wouldn't have to do what I've done before. So
it
really
came to you.
Yeah, it wasn't about disseminating information. It was about absorbing the information.
What's your morning routine? Like, how do you start off your day? Because your quantity, I feel like, is out of this world, as you were discussing.
So, like, right now I have about 700 tweets all ready to go for the future. So, like, I mean, I've morbidly thought about this, but if I were to die and my wife doesn't have my passcode or anything like that, like, you'd be getting Darren Rovell tweets like today.
Yeah. You should give your wife your password.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm a big believer in that anyways. I think husbands and wives should share passwords on everything.
She has my stuff. She has my cell. Just don't worry about it. She has my cell phone password. It's all fine. She was able to get in. Nothing's locked. I have one phone. I have 17.
That surprises me that you have one phone.
1,700. I have 1,700 chargers. I do have one phone. But now I lost my train of thought. What were we just talking about?
Your morning routine.
Oh, my morning routine. So my morning routine is actually my night routine. So before I go to bed, I write on a piece of lined paper. I take a piece of lined paper and I write everything I need to do. And there are certain dates that I get ready for. So today, July 20th, is 52nd anniversary of the moon landing, and I have some moon landing pieces. And then and the memorabilia side's fun for me too, but like July 29th is the 40th anniversary of the most famous wedding ever, Charles and Diana. And I have a ticket that got you into the church that day.
Cool.
So I'm a history buff. I'm a theater buff. I'm a
cinema, music,
Renaissance man. I'm a Renaissance man. And I love all this, and I love the art of telling the story.
For your memorabilia collection, I saw the other day the shirt that Tom Hanks wore in Forrest Gump when he's
Right.
running in that whole
Yes.
sequence.
Not
That's
not the smiley face one. I probably couldn't afford that
mm,
one. Just the
mm.
Nike one, if anyone.
Do you buy these for a personal collection that is ultimately an investment?
Nothing that I buy is cheaper than the day I buy it. I
I
really
love it.
believe that.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to tell the story of it. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to get Tom Hanks to sign it. I'm always trying to add value. And the
Yeah.
truth is, I enjoy my collections, but I don't enjoy them enough not to sell them. So
Hmm.
I try to jump ahead on markets 1 to 3 years in advance. So I like to, I mean, I'm just big on nostalgia. And
Yeah.
as an 80s kid, I think 80s uh it tugs the heartstrings a little bit more for some reason. I don't know. But I think I know nostalgia. So like when
Hmm.
I saw that graded video games were coming out and people were taking sealed video games and grading them and that they were going to be worth thousands of dollars, I was not the guy that said, "Oh, that's so stupid." I was the guy that said, "Oh my God, I get it. It makes complete sense." So I see all that, like when now sealed first generation iPhones are selling for $18,000. Like,
Oh my
makes
gosh.
complete sense to me, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's also funny because what were you going to do? Like as a young kid, you weren't going to hold on to the video game. You know,
Yeah.
you all ripped it open. I love the idea of natural scarcity in things.
That's very interesting. What is your favorite memorabilia piece that you have?
So I started collecting tickets just because, again, naturally rare. People threw out tickets. They didn't know where to put them.
Yeah.
Even if they kept them, how long can it be on a bulletin board? How
Sure.
long can it be in a scrapbook? And so it's one of two tickets that have been graded. There might be one other, but I doubt there is, of the first game that Michael Jordan wore his Air Jordans.
Okay. See, that's so specific, but that's how your brain works to
But then
me.
I
You're
can tell the story. But then I can
yeah.
tell the story about how, like, no
Yeah.
one there that day knew that was a special day, and
Right.
it's so cool to then go back and then find a picture from that game and just do a deep dive.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you've been a pioneer in sports business reporting. Then you transitioned to news. You've covered politics, elections. You've won an Emmy. Now you're with Action Network on the gambling side, a senior executive producer. Why sports betting?
So in 2018, I was coming to the end of my second stint at ESPN. I
Mhm.
had 7 months left on my contract, but here I was sitting in New Jersey. The Supreme Court had just made their decision whereby states can now decide whether they want to legalize gambling. And I'm in New Jersey here, and I'm seeing it at the ground floor. I happen to be in, not many people say, thank God I live in New Jersey, but in this case, it definitely applied. I was seeing the world of what it would be at maturity in
Okay.
my state, and I couldn't believe it. My friends who would talk about sports and text about sports, who were not bettors, all of a sudden were getting into the lines, the spreads,
Yeah.
everything going on. And I said, this is just going to mirror across the
Hmm.
country.
Hmm.
If you were to see the buses in New York City that went from New York to New Jersey and back, like every bus was DraftKings, FanDuel,
Hmm.
BetMGM, whatever it was. And I just said, you know what? I've gone from writing 20 to 40 to 60 gambling stories a year.
Yeah.
Can I do it, full time? Knowing that if there were big sports business stories, especially now, like name, image, and likeness and other things, obviously the Action Network is going to set me loose. But could I do it more? And I love covering the big bets, and I love
Hmm.
covering, all the betting, where the money is, where people are voting with their wallet.
Yeah.
That's what people, whether it's a jersey list or whether it's gambling, there's going to be so much focus on it. And there's a lot of, I think I'm an adrenaline. Oh, I know I'm an adrenaline.
Yeah.
And,
I'd say
and
so.
right. And so to have something that was unique. Plus the other thing was, this is no disrespect to anyone, but there had not really been a big reporter into the
Yeah.
betting game.
Yeah.
And it was the right time because there wasn't any like, oh, he's not a journalist anymore. And I think a lot of that has to do with the Action Network being like it's a real media outlet. Yes, it helps bettors get better, but like it's not it's not a tout service. So there's no reaction to that. But I felt like I could make betting journalism better, and I feel like I have.
I'd agree. It's good to have your name and your credibility as well come to the space, because this is where the industry is going. Obviously, here we are talking about it. You brought up NIL. I want to pick your brain on this a little bit. As of July 1st.
It is I'm going to let you ask the question because you're the host, but
is this hard for you?
Yes, I'm the host. Yeah. I'm the host.
I'm the captain now.
Shut up. Just shut up, Darren. It is the crazy in 20 years. Yeah. It's definitely it's probably the craziest thing I've ever seen. The idea that, and I probably wrote the very first stories on, at Syracuse when Carmelo told me, my name should be on the back of the jersey and I should be getting a piece. That's 2003, and I've covered and I've asked every NCAA president about, merchandising and everything. The fact that on July 1st, all of a sudden, the whole thing opened up. And because of the NCAA losing a Supreme Court case, like days before, their appeal was shut down. There is no clearinghouse. Right. No one says anything about what a deal should be, how much that deal should be worth fair market value. Or could a booster just offer, boosters shouldn't DM the players. July 1st, boosters can DM the players, give them your offer. Oh, agents can now represent players. It can't be an inducement to represent them when they're a pro, but I mean, it is just insane.
Floodgates. Open the floodgates. You're right. There should have been like almost a transition period or meetings. And I guess my question to you then is, if you're an athletic director, how do you stay on top of this?
I've spoken to athletic directors. The first time they see deals is when it gets filed to the school. There's no conversation with the school. There's no conversation with the coach. And all of a sudden they're like, yeah, hey, we know you need to file this deal here. This guy's getting $40 an autograph and this and that. And by the way, once they file the deal on like this guy's getting whatever autograph, that athlete is not necessarily required to say, as long as it's not during practice time,
exactly
when he's doing what, where, right? So like you definitely lose control. And I don't think, I don't think because it seems to be a free-for-all that there won't be people who will lose eligibility here. I mean, it's not as free as it seems, though. Again, I cannot believe, and I discussed this with Oliver Luck, because I can't believe there is not a clearinghouse that says this is what each endorsement should be worth for if a quarterback in the SEC, or if he signs this deal, and if it's above that, there's a holding period or something like that. Now, it's going to be harder to cheat with the schools having the contracts, but the big schools. Now, here's the thing that I think is interesting. What happens if you have a girl like Olivia Dunn, and she's at LSU gymnastics, and they have a great program, or let's say the Cavender twins at Fresno State. Yeah. Am I more likely to go to Fresno State so that I could then appear in their videos and get my value up? Right? Like, think about that, right? Like
Olivia Dunn has 1 million plus Instagram followers.
Right. And Olivia Dunn has, 3.9 million on TikTok. Like, do I go there because I want to be around her and she's going to increase my value? Yeah. We've never had that before in that sense. And then I'm glad that the atrocity of South Carolina women's basketball and Clemson football of, our players voted that we didn't want to be on social media. No, they didn't. Okay. Okay. Don't give me that.
That was bull.
And I've always, and I've gotten garbage from, and I take it. I go to battle every day. I'm fine. I know what I think.
You like battle. I do
like battle. Again, adrenaline, raging, I'm going to say what I need to say, but the Clemson people who are killing me every year, listen, it wouldn't have hurt Trevor Lawrence. Maybe it would have a little bit, but like, if you can't engage during the season,
Mm-hmm.
one, that's the coach taking away your opportunity to make mistakes, which is selfish because you should make mistakes. My horrible mistakes when I've been trending nationally on Twitter, above Jared Fogle of Subway, for God's sakes.
Jesus.
Like that's when you really learn.
Oh my God. Well, just be thankful that yours was, and I know exactly what incident you're referring to, is you got duped. You got, and as far as I'm concerned, one major mistake in a career of reporting.
People, there's a whole bunch of things. Sometimes you make a call. I would say that the times when I've made mistakes is when I'm just not fully paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
Young twin boys, they're both crying at the same time, and I'm trying to tweet. That doesn't work.
Oh, don't blame it on the twins now.
I will blame it on the twins.
Do you want to tell that story real quick so our listeners know what we're talking about?
Yeah.
With the NBA escorts?
Yes. So basically, I was doing a story on how the NBA was down in their labor situation, that things were suffering, and there was a guy who emailed me who said that he was part of an escort service and his business was down 30 to 40%. So I did not call him, but I conducted an email interview.
Mm-hmm.
And I basically, to see if he was real, I asked him what I thought were really tough questions.
Mm-hmm.
And he answered them really well. And I put it in the article. And like 3 or 4 years later, he said, I was this guy. And God. Now what's interesting is when a news person is holding a microphone up to someone, if someone wants to lie and say they saw the kid jumping off, that we usually never know.
Yeah.
But if you're at a point where you're a E-list celebrity like me, and people want to get back at you, right? Yeah. And there's a malicious way. That's the only way that comes out. But unfortunately, I think journalists are lied to every day to their face.
Yes.
But it never really comes out. So that I was like 6 or 7 years into my career, that I now make sure I doubly check, or it doesn't wind up, in an article. There's so many opportunities you can have to say something in the wrong way, to,
mm-hmm.
You got to be really careful with how you choose your words.
And here we are talking about sports, and your story was more about sports business and how the lockout was affecting everything. Right. I've been lied to by a head football coach about who the starting quarterback is within 2 minutes of kickoff, and went on air with bad information. And I see the other quarterback running on the field, and you just feel so hung out to dry. Now yours was,
oh my God, I had
intent.
Olivia, I had a worse situation.
Okay.
I was doing a profile of Michael Vick's agent while the agent was negotiating with what I thought was the San Diego Chargers to move up to the first pick in the draft in 2001. Okay. I was in the same hotel room as the agent, and he's saying it's the Chargers, and I'm doing like a live blog, and and then someone else is reporting that they're coming close to a deal with the Falcons. And he lied to me in the room. Jeez. To use, oh my God, I was, so it's hard. It's hard. You're expected to get things right all the time. And that's why I've, in situations where I've had one source, there's been probably 5 or 10 situations where I have one source on massive stories, and I've gone with it only because I've known it was lock stock. Kobe changing his jersey number from 8 to 24 had one source. It wasn't Kobe, but it was someone good enough that I was going to go with. So yeah, you have to have all these rules.
Hey, speaking of Kobe, you all had a special relationship. How did that relationship form, and what do you feel like he would have done off the court if he wasn't so tragically taken from us?
So in 2006, I interviewed Kobe, and he said, "Hey, you're always talking about the business. As I get to the end of my career," which is, again, that wasn't the end of his career. He had 10 more years left, but it was the first 10, second 10. He said, "I want to do more business. Give me your phone number." So I gave him my phone number, and he continued to surprise me. He wanted to learn about companies to invest in, and I had been investing in food and beverage companies. And we sat, I used to go to LA, and his favorite restaurant was this IHOP that only had 10 tables, because only 10 people, or 10 people full of tables, could notice him. He was very friendly. He said hi to everyone.
Wow.
And we were going to invest in this company, and it was $8 million for 10%. And I told him to invest in it, and he ultimately didn't. And 6 months later, it sold for 285 million.
Oh.
And he goes, next one. I'm like, yeah, okay. So we played that game, and I knew I had a lot of pressure on me to do the next one. And we went back and forth. We talked all the time. And so for the next one, I said, okay, I got this guy. He just sold vitamin water to Coke for 4.1 billion. His name's Mike Rapoli. You might not like the drink right now, but this is a horse that I would attach my name to and go. So I'm telling you, you already lost 23 million by not listening to me. I'm telling you, put your money in. And he put $6 million in for 10%. And in the next 6 months, I think it's going to sell for 5 to 7 billion. So he's not around, but his family will have, 5 or 600 million.
That's a great story.
And I'm really proud of it. He was a guy who, I would say, like, lived life in a way that he almost like knew life was short. I know that sounds freaky, but he did not sleep. And he was the most voracious guy I'd ever seen. And he would have done so much. I mean, look at what he did in his short time off the court with the books and the business that he did, and winning the Oscar for Dear Basketball. It's really sad. It really hit me recently when my kid brought home a book, Who Was Kobe Bryant? And I was, man, I was like, God, he's past tense. It's crazy.
It's still hard to believe. Thank you for sharing that too.
Yeah.
That's really interesting stuff. My dad, I know, worked with Kobe a lot too when he started doing some broadcasting. And he said his last picture with Kobe, it was them walking in the tunnel at Staples Center, and someone took a picture, and he has it. And I asked him, Dad, do you remember what you guys were talking about in this picture? That's Kobe Bryant. And now everyone's thinking about their last encounter with them. And he said all he wanted to talk about was his daughters. And my dad has 3 daughters.
Oh my God.
That's what they were talking about.
That's crazy. Yeah. I have a video of when he announced his retirement in Philly that luckily another journalist took. And he hugs me, and the first thing he asked is, did you bring your babies down with you? He never forgot to ask about, your kids. By the way, my favorite line from your father, I hope I don't mess this up. I think it's like, without regard for human life, or something like that. I can't remember, something
with
like
no regard for human life.
Yeah. I mean, God, that is, big fan. I'm a big fan.
Thank you. As we are of you. I want to wrap up talking more about sports betting and now your presence in it. But you recently spoke with our VP of trading, Jason Scott, about NBA futures in June and how the playoffs have been so good to sportsbook, because I mean, here we are with Phoenix and Milwaukee. What the heck? Why is this so rare? How did this all take shape?
Yeah. I mean, I just don't think even people in Phoenix did not think this was there. I think at the start of the season, they were the 14th most likely team to win. Milwaukee was up there. I think a lot of people bet for them to win I think they were as short as in the beginning, 6-1. I think a lot of people, thought that they would definitely win the Eastern Conference, but then there was so much of a conclusion out West that, the Lakers or the Clippers, I mean, the Clippers just got so hot with the idea of Kawhi and Paul George on the same team. There just wasn't new energy around Milwaukee. And honestly, I don't think people knew how good Chris Middleton was. I mean, he is ridiculous. And he reminds me of Sam Perkins in that he's kind of like droopy-eyed, shows almost no emotion, and is just an assassin. I mean, and then obviously Connaughton and all the other players just play. They are the Milwaukee Bucks in a sense are the perfect team. And that's why they don't get looks, because we are geared towards a world of stars.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really well said.
Yeah.
It's funny with sports betting right now after finals, it's kind of a dead time in the sports calendar before we get into football season. But April, this past April, as we're coming out of COVID, was the second biggest month ever for the US gaming industry. Revenue grew 26%. Why do you think sports betting has flourished after the year we had? Why is it so hot right now?
I think it's why crypto has been big. Listen, I mean, I bought $93,000 worth of digital horses.
Did you?
I did. It only lasted 41 days because speaking of cheating on the wife, I was whispering and I was very uncomfortable. Obviously, like if she knew I spent $93,000 on
Yeah.
digital horses. I did sell them for a
Hmm.
nice margin, but and then crypto, it's like, crypto, we need to get our dopamine going.
Yeah.
Memorabilia, nostalgia. Our life sucks. We can't see people like we normally see. We
Yep.
go back to the time when we were kids and we look at things and it lights up our eyes. So I think it's all connected.
Mhm.
Betting and crypto and memorabilia. We are trying to just have something. I'm kind of dumbing down, but it has something to live for. Like in
Mhm.
each day, figure out how to have intensity running through our body. And I think that very simply, that's what it is. That's what it is.
I wholeheartedly agree. One more thing, mental health has never been more relevant for us laymen and for athletes. It's never been discussed more in sports. You host a podcast with Theo Fleury. We're all a little bit crazy about mental health. I love the title. What have you learned from doing this show?
So when I hit 40, I was like, I've only enriched myself. I haven't really done that much for society. And I looked at all the things that I
I
could have done.
disagree, first of all. You have brought us a lot of entertainment over the
Okay,
years.
entertainment, joy.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. But I want to do some real things. And
Okay.
I thought, I'm not a doctor. I can't cut out something and give someone life that had
Mhm.
cancer. And mental health is a crazy thing. No one thinks about mental health. I was in 2010, I was humming along in my career. I was in Vancouver for the Olympics. I was broadcasting for CNBC starting at 2:30 in the morning and ending at 2:30 in the afternoon. And something was running through my body. I had adrenaline running through my body. My feet were shaking. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? I do not know what's going on. I essentially I had never taken care of my mental health. And
Mhm.
this is the time, like actually 30, if you look at that was the time where I just broke down and I somehow got on some medication, which was crazy, where the words were moving around in the prompter. And I'm like, okay. Like when people say, oh, you were on 300 milligrams of this drug, what were you in bed all day? I go, no, I was on national television for 12 hours. And
Wow.
they go, that's impossible. So I realized, okay, drugs are not going to save me in this thing. I got to do therapy. I got to find all these things. And I found myself and I figured it out. And then I said, you know what? I got to just work on this for the rest of my life. So I joined the organizations. Actually, were all a little crazy. And then we started doing this podcast. We went around to 20 to 30 schools. Sorry, this is long-winded, but I'm very proud of it.
No, it's
We
important.
went to 20 to 30 schools and gave these presentations where we told stories, did breathing exercises, allowed people to ask questions in a forum on mental health that they've never had before.
Mhm.
And I think I've saved probably 20, 30 lives. I mean, I'm not counting, but there were people who were in bad shape who
Mhm.
didn't know what to do. And so we're hoping that, through talk, through reaching out to us, I mean, the podcast has been great. We've had so many topics to talk about, whether it's Naomi Osaka
Mhm.
or Richard Sherman or whoever. So
Mhm.
yeah, very, very important to my life. And at the speed that my life runs, I think that's the part where I kind of slow down and it feels really good to give back because it's the community, Olivia, is so underserved. And
Mhm.
you have these statistics that come out with, oh, the year in COVID, there were fewer suicides. And then unconnected, the same organization a month later says, oh, there were 25,000 more drug overdoses. Do you think like if you connected that, it's the
Mhm.
worst year
Mhm.
for death in that sense. So I hope that my platform can augment it and and really talk about it before it's like, we always hear like suicide hotline.
Mhm.
Let's get to, that's a great, I'm not shutting that down, but like, let's get to people and
For.
make people, yeah, make people realize they need to talk to someone. Let's make it cheaper. Let's make it easier to get to, all that. I
Mhm.
think that's really important.
Well, Darren, thank you for sharing not only your story. Everyone should check out that podcast. We're all a little bit crazy. And thank you for letting us tell that story as well. And for the record, every time you have a platform like you do, and you're so big on social media and now this podcast, I bet you're helping a lot more people than you realize. So thank you for
Awesome.
speaking
Thank
out on
you.
that. Yeah. And thank you for joining us today. I wish we could go so much longer just about
I know we
your
got a lot of,
career.
we got there's just there's too much. There's too much
There
going
is.
on.
There is. You are one of a kind. Darren Rovell, thank you so much for being on.
Thanks, Olivia.